We need to move swiftly and precisely.
In a war defined by tanks, bullets, and blood, there was another kind of weapon, one made of rubber, paint, and sound. A secret U.S. unit that didn't fight with guns, but with deception. They were called the Ghost Army. Their mission, to fool Hitler's generals and save countless Allied lives. It began in 1944, as Allied forces pushed deeper into Nazi-occupied Europe. The Germans still held strong defensive lines, and the Allies needed every advantage they could get. That's when a small group of artists, engineers, and sound technicians were given an impossible task to create entire fake armies out of thin air. Officially, they were known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. But to those who served with them, they were magicians in uniform. These men came from art schools and advertising agencies, not boot camps. Some were painters from New York, others radio technicians or stage designers. Together, they would craft one of the most daring deceptions in military history. They built inflatable tanks, dummy artillery, and fake airfields so realistic that German pilots flying overhead couldn't tell the difference. From the sky, everything looked alive. Soldiers moving, trucks parked in formation, tire tracks carved carefully into the dirt. At night, they brought sound to the illusion. Huge speakers hidden in jeeps blasted recorded tanks, marching troops, and heavy equipment rumbling across the countryside. Each sound was carefully mixed and timed to echo across miles of farmland. To German ears, it was the noise of an approaching division, and panic followed. Meanwhile, radio operators created entire networks of fake messages. They transmitted orders between imaginary units, mimicking real army divisions down to their code words. German intelligence, always listening, believed every word. One of their most famous missions came in March 1945, near the Rhine River. The Allies were preparing to cross, but needed to keep their true position secret. The Ghost Army set up a decoy force miles away from the real crossing point. Overnight, they inflated hundreds of fake tanks and lined the fields with dummy artillery. The sound crews played their recordings through the night, and the radio team mimicked full battalion chatter. By dawn, the Germans had completely fallen for the illusion. They shifted troops and artillery toward the decoy, and the real Allied forces crossed the Rhine with minimal resistance. It was one of the greatest deceptions of the war, and it was pulled off by artists. But deception came with danger. The Ghost Army often operated within a few miles of the front lines. If they were discovered, the Germans would not hesitate to attack. Private Jack Macy, one of the men who served, once said, "We were close enough to hear the guns, and sometimes they were firing at us." Still, they pressed on, inflating tanks under artillery fire, painting decoys by moonlight, and staging entire invasions with just a handful of men. They didn't fight to kill, they fought to confuse. Over the course of the war, the Ghost Army carried out more than 20 missions across France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Germany. Their tricks saved thousands of lives, buying time and safety for the real troops who followed behind. When the war ended, their work was buried under layers of military secrecy. For decades, no one spoke of what they had done. Even their families never knew how they'd fought their war. It wasn't until years later that their story came to light. The tale of a secret unit that used creativity, sound, and illusion to turn the tide of battle. They didn't wear medals or claim glory. Their victory was quiet, but powerful.
Anything to report, Collins?
Every life saved by a decoy tank or a fake radio transmission was proof that art, even in war, could be a weapon. Soft orchestral music fades in, nostalgic tone. They were painters, Designers, sound engineers,
Mission
men who
complete.
turned deception into
Powering down.
defense and art into survival. The Ghost Army, the artists who made Hitler's generals believe in an army that never existed. Music fades out. Distant echoes of marching boots fade into silence. And
Nothing left.